Senator.
Let's
You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
Welcome back to Politics Aloud, the last stand of CFAX before artificial intelligence takes over. Glasses on. House of Commons Committee of Privileges report, coordinated campaign of interference in the work of the Privileges Committee. Printed 28th of June 2023. Current membership of the committee: Andy Carter MP, Alberto Costa MP, Alan Dorans MP, Yvonne Favog MP, Miss Harriet Harman, Sir Bernard Jenkins, Sir Chris Walker. Covering the matter, annex formal minutes and a list of reports from the committee during the current Parliament. Matter referred on 21st of April 2022, coordinated campaign of interference in the work of the Privileges Committee. Our inquiry into the matter referred on 21st of April 2022 related to the conduct of Right Honourable Boris Johnson and was focused on whether Mr Johnson had committed a contempt of Parliament by intentionally misleading the House of Commons. This special supplementary report puts on record our concerns at the improper pressure brought to bear on the committee and its members throughout this inquiry. We are concerned in particular at the involvement of members of both houses in attempting to influence the outcome of the inquiry. Those members did not choose to engage through any proper process, such as the submission of letters or evidence to our inquiry, but by attacking the members of the committee in order to influence their judgment. Their aim was 1. To influence the outcome of the inquiry, 2. Impede the work of the committee by inducing members to resign from it, 3. Discredit the committee's conclusions if those conclusions were not what they wanted, and 4. Discredit the committee as a whole. In our final report on Mr Johnson's conduct, we drew attention to the fact that our democracy depends on MPs being able to trust that what ministers say in the House of Commons is the truth. If ministers cannot be trusted to tell the truth, the House cannot do its job, and the confidence of the public in our whole political system is undermined. A referral to the Committee of Privileges is a mechanism, in practice the only mechanism, which a House can use to defend itself in the face of a minister misleading it. As the footnotes on that, the Committee of Privileges is not able to initiate inquiries on its own initiative, but once matters are referred to the House, it has power to inquire not only into the matter of the particular complaint, but also into facts surrounding and reasonably connected with the matter of the particular complaint, and into the principles of the law and custom of privilege that are concerned. In addition, Standing Order number 133 states, gives select committees power to make special reports on any matters they think fit to bring to the notice of the House. The work of the Privileges Committee is therefore crucial to our democracy and must itself be protected. If the House agrees to a motion to refer a matter of conduct to the committee, members of the House must respect that decision and allow the investigation to proceed without interference. When a disciplinary matter is under investigation, it is not appropriate for members to undermine the procedure of their own House. Erskine May defines contempt of Parliament as follows: any act or omission which obstructs or impedes either House of Parliament in the performance of its functions, or which obstructs or impedes any member or officer of such House in the discharge of their duty, or which has a tendency, directly or indirectly, to produce such results, may be treated as a contempt, even though there is no precedent of the offence. It is therefore impossible to list every act which might be considered to amount to contempt, as parliamentary privilege is a living concept. Erskine May is clear that to molest members on account of their conduct in Parliament is a contempt. Correspondence with members of an insulting character in reference to their conduct in Parliament, or reflecting on their conduct as members, have all been considered contempts. The Committee of Privileges has made the same judgment on those who incited the readers of a national newspaper to telephone a member and complain of a question of which they had given notice. Speeches and writings reflecting upon the conduct of members as members have been treated as analogous to their molestation on account of their behaviour in Parliament. Abusing or intimidating members on account of their conduct in their capacity of a member, or imputations that a member nominated to a select committee would not be able to act impartially in that service, are included among those contempts. On 6 March 2023, before an urgent question on civil service impartiality, the Speaker reminded the House that the Committee of Privileges had been charged with undertaking the inquiry into Mr Johnson, and it must be allowed to complete it without interference. It is for the committee to decide how to weigh up the evidence before it, and any attempt to use this urgent question to prejudice proceedings will be out of order and will not be tolerated. The House's ability to investigate and take charge against those whose acts or omissions obstruct or impede the House in the performance of its functions, and to enable committees to investigate allegations of such contempt, is an important constitutional principle. It underpins the ability of the House to order its internal affairs as it thinks fit. Members need to be able to perform their tasks, and it has been considered contempt to molest or obstruct them in carrying out their duties. MPs have control and legitimate means of influence over any Privileges Committee inquiry. They have the right to object to and vote on members appointed to the committee, and subsequently to raise any alleged conflicts of interest on points of order, to vote against a motion of referral, or to seek to amend the motion, to make comments on the committee's procedure to the committee itself, to submit evidence to the committee, and to debate, vote, and comment publicly on the committee's final report once it is published and the investigation is completed. We note that an example of criticism of the committee's procedures being conducted in an entirely appropriate and parliamentary manner was given by Sir William Cash when he raised concerns relating to our present inquiry in the debate on the referral motion by way of an early day motion, and through his contribution to the debate on the published report. What members have no right to do, however, is attempt to undermine inquiry or bring pressure to bear on the members of the Privileges Committee during the inquiry. An attack on the procedures of the House and on the impartial officers and advisers who support those processes is an attack on the legitimacy of Parliament itself. In criminal investigations, the Contempt of Court Act 1981 limits what can be said publicly, and the House's sub judice rule limits what can be said in Parliament. This is a specific and time-limited restraint on free speech for the purpose of protecting juries and avoiding the prejudicing of proceedings. The behaviour evidenced in this special report demonstrates that the expectation that members will refrain from interfering in the work of the Privileges Committee in ways that impede its functions has been proved wrong. The process of a Privileges Committee investigation therefore requires more explicit protection by a decision of the House to enable the members of the committee to carry out the work referred to them and to do so without interference. Similar explicit protection already exists in House of Commons standards cases involving alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct for MPs. The Code itself, which is approved by the House, requires that members must not lobby a member of the Committee on Standards, the Independent Expert Panel, or the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards, or their staff, in a manner calculated or intended to influence their consideration of whether a breach of the code of conduct has occurred, or in relation to the imposition of a sanction. In standard cases, it is also accepted that proceedings are confidential until the process is concluded. It is incumbent upon members of the House of Commons to refrain from interfering in a Privileges Committee inquiry, or any other select committee inquiry for that matter, while it is in progress. Members of the House of Lords should also respect constitutional boundaries and refrain from interfering with investigations carried out by the elected chamber. By his ruling on 6 March 2023, the Speaker prevented abuse within the House, but what needs to be addressed is a campaign waged outside Parliament by some members of the House of Commons and the House of Lords to undermine the committee. Those involved used newspapers and radio, and there was extensive use of social media. There were many examples, but the committee is particularly concerned about attacks mounted by experienced colleagues, including a serving Minister of the Crown, a former Leader of the House, and a former Secretary of State for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, and at least 3 members of the House of Lords, one of whom is the serving minister referred to above, who took it upon themselves to undermine procedures of the House of Commons. The former and current members of the government we have referred to are Privy Councillors. We have not catalogued every tweet or TV appearance, but have set out in an annex to this report some of the most disturbing examples of the coordinated campaign to interfere with the work of the committee. The annex includes statements made by the individuals referred to above and of others who followed their example. This matter is made more difficult because 2 of the members mounting the most vociferous attacks on the committee did so from the platform of their own hosted TV shows. Attacks by experienced members are all the more concerning, as they would have known that during the course of an investigation it was not possible for the Privileges Committee to respond to the attacks. Pressure was applied particularly to Conservative members of the committee. This had the clear intention to drive those members off the committee and sort of frustrate the intention of the House that the inquiry should be carried out, or to prevent the inquiry coming to a conclusion which the critics did not want. There were also sustained attempts to undermine and challenge the impartiality of the chair, who had been appointed to the committee by unanimous decision of the House. This unprecedented and coordinated pressure did not affect the conduct or outcome of our inquiry. However, it had significant personal impact on individual members and raised significant security concerns. If abuse of members who are carrying out the duties imposed on them by the House is allowed to continue, it is reasonable to conclude that in future members would decline to serve on the committee, or there might be a reluctance on the part of individuals approached as external advisors to serve in that role. If this happens, rather than making its decisions with the assistance of a report from a committee which can take advice and gather and evaluate evidence, the House might feel compelled to cede to an external authority the responsibility for protection of its rights and privileges. Free speech is at the heart of parliamentary democracy. However, members who, while an inquiry involving individual conduct is in progress, attack the honesty or the integrity of the committee, or attack the process itself in a way clearly aimed at discrediting the committee or steering the committee towards a particular outcome, or interfering in disciplinary proceedings set up by the House in a way that is unacceptable, We consider that the House should maintain its protection of inquiries into individual conduct referred to the Committee of Privileges in the same way that it does those being considered by the House's own Committee on Standards and Independent Expert Panel. Footnote to above. We note the following exchange on the floor of the House during the debate on the Committee's report on 19th of June 2023. Jacob Rees-Mogg, North East Somerset. I wonder whether the Right Honourable and Learned Lady could say something of her own position in relation to the precedent set by a judicial committee of the House of Lords, when a decision in which Lord Hoffman was involved was set aside not because he was biased, but because of the perception of bias. In relation to her famous tweets, how does she think she met the Hoffman test? Miss Harriet Harman. I am happy to answer the Right Honourable Gentleman. I was appointed by this House in the expectation I would chair the committee, with no one speaking against it. After the tweets were brought to light and highlighted, as I am concerned about the perception of fairness on the committee, I agree that perception matters. I made it my business to find out whether it would mean that the government would not have confidence in me if I continued to chair the committee. I actually said, I will be more than happy to step aside because perception matters, and I do not want to do this if the government do not have confidence in me. I need the whole House to have confidence in the work that it has mandated. I was assured that I should continue the work that the House had mandated and with the appointment that the House had put me into, and so I did just that. We recommend that the House agree a resolution in the following terms. That this House notes with approval the special report from the Committee of Privileges, considers that where the House has agreed to refer a matter relating to individual conduct to the Committee of Privileges, members of this House should not impugn the integrity of that committee or its members or attempt to lobby or intimidate those members or to encourage others to do so, since such behaviour undermines the proceedings of the House and is itself capable of being a contempt, and considers expedient that the House of Lords is made aware of the special report and this resolution so that that House can take such an action as it deems appropriate. If the government fails to table such a motion within a reasonable time, we note that any member has the power to write to the Speaker to ask for the matters in this special report to be given precedence as a matter of privilege. If Mr. Speaker does not grant precedence, that member will be able to table an appropriate motion to enable the House to reach a decision on those matters. Such a motion would be debatable and amendable. It will be for the House to consider what further action, if any, to take in respect of members of the House referred to in the special report. Annex. Tweets and comments referred to in paragraph 14 of the report. 15th of June 2023, Nadine Dorries on Twitter. We also need to keep a close eye on the careers of the Conservative MPs who sat on that committee. Do they suddenly find themselves on chicken runs into safe seats, gongs, were promises made? We need to know if they were. Justice has to be seen to be done at all levels of this process. 9th of June 2023, Zach Goldsmith, Lord, on Twitter. In retweeting a tweet calling the inquiry a witch hunt on Kangaroo Court, stated, exactly this. There was only ever going to be one outcome, and the evidence was totally irrelevant to it. 9th of June 2023, Mark Jenkinson, Twitter. When the witch hunt has been forgotten, future generations will look back in astonishment. 9th of June 2023, Michael Fabricant, MP, Twitter. Serious questions will need to be asked about the manner in which the investigation was conducted. There were no jurists, as were apparent by the tone of the examination. The question of calibre, malice and prejudice will need to be answered now or by historians. What the fuck? 9th of June 2023, Brendan Clark Smith on Twitter. Tonight we saw the end of a parliamentary witch hunt which would put a banana republic to shame. It is the people of this country who elect and decide on their MPs. It's called democracy and we used to value it here. Sadly, this no longer appears to be the case. 23rd of March 2023, Nadine Dorries, MP, Talk TV. I don't think there ever was a world in which this committee was going to find Boris innocent. The committee have demonstrated very clearly that they have decided early on to find him guilty. The committee knew that they had not a shred of evidence to prove that he misled with intent. They changed the rules, lowered the bar, and inserted the vague term reckless into the terms of reference. Boris Johnson will be found guilty by this kangaroo court. There is no doubt about that, and that in itself would be a disgraceful and possibly unlawful conclusion with serious reputational consequences. 22nd of March 2023, Rees-Mogg, BBC Radio 4. Asked whether he shared the view expressed by some of Mr Johnson's supporters that the process was a kangaroo court, he said, "I think it makes kangaroo courts look respectable." 21st of March 2023, Andrea Jenkins, Twitter. "I hope to see him fully exonerated and to put an end to this kangaroo court." 20th of March 2023, Rees-Mogg, GB News. "The Privileges Committee is not even a proper legal setup. It has a gossamer of constitutional propriety thrown over it, but it is in fact a political committee against Boris Johnson." 16th of March 2023, Priti Patel, GBB's News. "How can a handful of members of Parliament in a committee, really be that objective in light of the individual comments that have been made? I don't want to name people, but it is a fact. The lack of transparency, the lack of accountability. I think there is a culture of collusion, quite frankly, involved here." 3rd of March 2023, Nadine Dorries on Twitter. "They have nothing. He protested his innocence all along and he was right. It was a gross miscarriage of justice at the very least." 1st of September 2022, Dorries in the Daily Mail. "This expert legal opinion shows that the inquiry was a biased, Kafkaesque witch hunt. It should now be halted before it does any more damage." Conservative Post email campaign. An example of selective pressure brought to bear on Conservative members of the committee was the email campaign instigated by the Conservative Post website, urging those members to stand aside from the committee and alleging that the inquiry was deeply flawed, biased, and unfair. Two members of the House of Lords, whose peerages were conferred on the recommendation of Mr Johnson, were among over 600 people who emailed committee members using the template email devised by Conservative Post. Conservative Post is the online magazine of the Conservative Democratic Organisation, whose president is Lord Cruddas and whose vice president is Lord Greenhalgh. On Tuesday 14th of March 2022, shortly before the oral evidence session with Mr Johnson held on 22nd of March, Conservative Post contained the following article. "Dear members, we need your help to protect the integrity of our political system and the Conservative Party. As you may know, 4 Conservative MPs are currently taking part in a Labour-led investigation into former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We believe that this investigation is deeply flawed, biased and unfair, and in bringing both Parliament and our party into disrepute. We believe that all 4 Conservative MPs, Andy Carter MP for Warrington South, Alberto Costa MP for South Leicestershire, Sir Bernard Jenkin MP for Harwich and North Essex, and Sir Charles Walker MP for Broxbourne should step down from this Labour-led Privileges Committee immediately. This will send a strong message that we will not tolerate politically motivated attacks against our party, and that we stand firmly behind our elected representatives. We urge you to take action today by completing the form below to let the 4 Conservative MPs know that you want them to step away from this biased investigation. Your voice matters, and we need your support to ensure that our party and our country are protected from politically motivated attacks. As soon as you fill in your details and click submit below, your email will shoot off to all 4 Conservative MPs. Let's make a stand. Thank you for your continued support. Claire Bullivant, founder and editor, Conservative Post. Please fill in below and press submit. To Andy Carter, MP for Warrington South, Alberto Costa, MP for South Leicestershire, Sir Bernard Jenkin, MP for Harwich and North Essex, and Sir Charles Walker, MP for Broxbourne. We are writing to express our deep concern and disappointment over your participation in the Labour-led investigation into Prime Minister Boris Johnson. As members and supporters of the Conservative Party, we believe that this investigation is deeply flawed, biased and unfair, and is bringing both Parliament and our party into disrepute. We believe that this investigation is nothing more than a politically motivated attack against our former Prime Minister, and it is not based on facts or evidence. The processes being applied to our parliamentary democracy are reminiscent of a banana republic and are no longer objective or independent. We have witnessed collusion within the civil service and now within the Conservative Parliamentary Party and the office of the Prime Minister to reputationally smear and impugn Boris Johnson MP. As respectable Conservative MPs, we urge you to stand up for justice and reject this corrosive rot within our politics and party. We have seen the opinion of Lord Panic, and we know the deep regard in which he is held, and that his independence is unimpeachable. We implore you to protect your own integrity by rejecting this committee, including rejecting secret witnesses who say they are bullied, rejecting the biased report of Sue Gray, rejecting the lack of natural justice, and rejecting the change of the offence after the event. We know what a lie is, and it is not making a mistake. It is time for you to stand up for democracy, stand up for justice, and protect the integrity of our political system. There must be no show trials in our nation. We urge you to take action and protect your integrity by resigning from this committee immediately. Signed, email the Priveleges Committee, Conservative MPs. Over 600 emails to Conservative members of the committee followed over the next few days. They included emails appearing to come from Lord Cruddas and Lord Greenhalgh. Well, I don't think there's much I can add there that hasn't already been well put. We've already seen Zach Goldsmith get turfed out by Sunak, or with Sunak, because he was an easy target. Rees-Mogg deserves the crack in the jaw that report gave him, if only it was literal. And it's now over 410 days since Nadine Dorries lied to the Select Committee, which is a sackable or resignable offence. And yeah, let's see if Sunak does anything about that. I'm not really hopeful. He's got all the stamina of a prepubescent shitting schoolboy. I think he might actually be frightened of Dorries, not politically, but on a much more visceral basis. Like she might pull his pants down or pull his hair or something, and I think that creeps into his psyche. Anyway, I hope this was of some use to you. Feel free to remix it as you like, include it in your own feeds. Attribution welcome, not necessary. And I've got a Patreon, patreon.com/Andy Look, where you get exclusive previews of my other podcast, I've Never Read Discworld, as well as this one. You get monthly pros, Always Sunny videos, and other things which are good and arty and kind of fun. Thanks.